Hello everyone, my name is Cherry B. Abonder from BSE 2E. The topic that I will discuss today is the city-states of ancient Mesopotamia. Before we start, let me tell you about the Mesopotamia. So, saan nga ba nanggaling ang salitang Mesopotamia? The word Mesopotamia is formed from the ancient word meso, meaning between or in the middle of, and potamos, meaning river or ilog. So what is a city-state? In ancient city-states summer grow rapidly. Soon there were hundreds of villages and towns, some with populations of only a few hundred and some with populations of 30,000 or more. Cities became the centers of trade, learnings, and religion and offered people more opportunities than life in the country. By the year 2500 BCE, or before Christ era, the total population in ancient Sumer was more than a half million people. About 4 out of 5 of those people lived in the cities, making Sumer the world's first urban culture.
Mm.
As the Sumerian villages grow into large cities, they form city-states. So, dito nagsimula kung paano naging city-state siya dahil sa mga Sumerian. This is where city government would rule the city as well as the land around it. These city-states often fought each other. They built walls around their cities for protection. To protect themselves, small towns attached themselves to big cities. This created a system or city-states. City-states are common communities that include a city and its nearby farmland. The nearby land might include several smaller villages. As you can see on this picture, because of Sumerian cities grow gradually, they did not look like cities today. Instead of a grid of streets built at right angles, Sumerian city-states had narrow, winding streets. Each city was surrounded by a thick, protected wall made of mud bricks. Typically, rulers first, priests, then later, kings, merchants, and then craftsmen live within the city's walls. Farmers, however, tended to live outside the city's walls, nearer to the river and their crops. So, what city-states are in Mesopotamia? There were many city-states throughout the summer. Actually, there are 12 city-states, which are the Bad Tibura, Uruk, Or, Separ, Aksha, Karak, Nippur, Adab, Uma, Kish, Lagash, and Larsa. But some of the most powerful city-states are Erido, Bad Tibura, Shurupak, Uruk, Separ, and Or. Eridu is thought to be the first of the major cities. It is formed into one of the oldest cities in the world. Each city has its own ruler. The origins of the Sumerian people remain a mystery. By 3000 BC or before Christ, they had established a number of independent cities in southern Mesopotamia, including the Erido, Ur, and Uruk. As the cities expanded, they gained political and economic control over the surrounding countryside. They formed city-states, the basic units of Sumerian civilizations. Civilization, civilizations of ancient Sumer was composed of 12 major city-states, which is yung nabanggit ko kanina na city-states. Um, there are two larger city-states which are the Uruk and Ur. Uruk, in these early days, towns were walled for additional protections. The city of Uruk, located on the Euphrates River side of the land between two rivers, controlled 76 nearby villages and was enclosed within a 4-mile, a long wall of brick. And Ur is the capital of the ancient Sumer, was the city-state of Ur. It is also located on the Euphrates River, in the south of Uruk. The river trade kept the city well supplied with everything, including wealth. When the river changed its course, the city of Ur lost its wealth and its power. As you can see on this picture, while taking on additional duties such as directing the army. As kings took over the rule of leading Sumerian city, they retained some of the priest's divine authority. In this Highlander note, the star surrounded by planets, indicating both that the king was close to the gods and that his power extended beyond the earth. In each city, one building was likely to stand out from all the others. The largest and most important structure in a Sumerian city was the temple. It was called ziggurat. The first ziggurats were built around 2200 BCE or before Christ era. Kung papansin nyo dito sa picture, ang ziggurat ay may templo sa tuktok na pinagdadausan ng mga ritual. Temples were originally built on platforms. During the 3rd millennium BC or before Christ, these were made higher and bigger. Eventually, it was decided to build even higher temples on platforms which were stepped. These step towers we called ziggurats by 2000 BC or before Christ. Mud brick ziggurats were being constructed in many Sumerian cities. Later, ziggurats were constructed in Babylonian and Assyrian cities. More than just a temple, the ziggurat was the center of the city life. Their religion and rulers. The most prominent building in the Sumerian city was the temple dedicated to the chief of god and goddesses of the city. This temple was often built atop a massive step tower called a ziggurat. The Sumerians believed that god and goddesses owned the cities. The people devoted much of their wealth to building temples and elaborate houses for the priests and priestesses who served the gods. The temples and related buildings served as the center of the city physically, economically, and even politically. Surplus food and crafts were stored in the temples, which could then be distributed or traded. So, the Sumerians believe in many gods and goddesses. So, yung mga Sumerians, naniniwala sila na maraming Diyos na pinaniniwalaan. At naniniwala din sila na yung Diyos nila ay pag-aari ng mga Diyos ang cities. So, ang tawag sa ganito na pananampalataya or their belief is polytheism. Sumerians believe in 4 main gods and thousands of lesser gods. They believe their 4 main gods, the gods of sky, wind, food fields, and fresh water, created the world and ruled over it. Sumerians thought of their gods as rich landowners who created humans to work for them. Isa sa mga halimbawa ng mga Diyos nila ay si Anu. Ito yung Diyos ng kalangitan. Pangalawa, Enlil. Ito yung Diyos ng mga ulap at hangin. Pangatlo, si Ea, Diyos ng tubig at baha. Their economy and society. So, although the economy of the Sumerian city-states was based chiefly on farming, trade and industry became important as well. The peoples of Mesopotamia made woolen textiles and pottery, but they were particularly one known for their metal work, which is the copper, gold, and silver, were already being used for jewelry and some tools. The Sumerians discovered that when tin is added to copper, it makes bronze. Bronze has a lower melting point, which makes it easier to cast the copper. Bronze is also harder metal than copper and corroders less. It could be melted down and remade when it wore out. The ancient Mesopotamia. These scattered agrarian communities started in the northern part of the ancient Mesopotamian region and spread south, continuing to grow for several thousand years until forming what modern humans would recognize as cities, which were considered the work of the Sumer people. Uruk was the first of these cities. Dating back to around 3200 BC or before Christ, it was a mud brick metropolis built on the richest both brought from trade and conquest and featured public art, gigantic columns and temples. At its peak, it had a population of some 50,000 citizens. Sumerians are also responsible for the earliest form of written language, which is the cuneiform, with which they kept detailed clerically records. Ang pinakalumang cuneiform noong 3500 BCE or the before Christ era, ang manunulat o tagapagtala ng Sumeria ay lumikha ng sistema ng pagsusulat na tinatawag natin cuneiform. Ito ang tinatayang pinakaunang pamamaraan ng pagsulat. Matulis na stilos ng ginagamit ng panunulat. Sa isang parisukat na tapyas ng malambot na luad ay umuukit sila ng larawan na sumasagisag sa mga kaisipan at mga pangyayaring nagaganap. So, nung panahon nila, mga Sumerian, ito yung mga ginagamit nila, yung cuneiform. Pagkatapos, pinatutuyo ang mga ito at itinatago. Nakatala ang kasaysayan sa mga tapyas ng mga batong ito, which is ito yung tinatawag nilang cuneiform tablet. Gumagamit ang mga mangalakal ng tatak or seal ng mamamili, nagbebenta at saksi. Ang mga selyo ng lagda, or the signature of the seal, na ginagawa sa hugis cylinder ay inuukit sa bato at isinusuot ng may-ari na parang pintas. Although Mesopotamia had little stone or wood for building purposes, it did have plenty of mud. Mud bricks easily shaped by the hand were left to bake in the hot sun until they were hard enough to use for building. People in Mesopotamia were remarkably creative with mud bricks. As you can see in the first picture, yan yung inimbento nilang the arch. At yung pangalawa, yun yung dome. And they built some of the largest brick building in the world. Mud bricks are still used in rural areas of Southwest Asia today. So there are 9 ancient Sumerian inventions that changed the world. So the first one is mass-produced pottery. It is evolved from the ancient civilizations of Mesopotamia. And the second one is the writing. It is also an early writing sample from Mesopotamia, using pictographs to create a record of food supplies. Jones says that it's likely thought not 100% certain that the Sumerians were the first to develop a writing system. Either way, it's clear that they were using written communications by 2800 BC or before Christ. But they didn't set out to write great literature or record their history, but rather to keep track of goods that they were making and selling. And the third one is hydraulic engineering. It is also a Mesopotamian relief showing the agricultural importance of the rivers. And the fourth one is the chariot. It is the scale model of a simple two-wheeled chariot which was invented by the Sumerians in Mesopotamia. The Sumerians didn't invent wheeled vehicles, but they probably developed the first two-wheeled chariot in which a driver drove a team of animals. Rights by Richard W. Bullitt in the title of the Wheel, Inventions and Reinventions. And the fifth one is the plow. It is also imitations of a Sumerian plow. According to Cromer, the Sumerians invented the plow, a vital technology in farming. And the sixth one is the textile mills. It is also a Mesopotamian woman weaving. And the seventh one is mass-produced bricks. An, ar- an archaeological site in Mari, Syria, that was an ancient Sumerian city on the western bank of the Euphrates River. To make up of a shortage of stones and timber of building houses and temples, the Sumerians created molds for making bricks out of clay. According to Cromer, at pangwalo ay the mass-produced bricks. At ang pangwalo ay the metallurgy, which is it is the it is symbol that lion-headed eagle made of copper, gold, and lapis lazuli by Sumerian civilizations. The Sumerians were some of the earliest people to use copper to make useful items, ranging from spearheads to chisels and razors. It is according to the Copper Development Associations. And the yung pangsyam naman ay yung mathematics. So ito naman, it is a cuneiform script developed by the Sumerians. Primitive people counted using simple methods, such as putting notches on bones, but it was the Sumerians who developed a formal numbering system based on units of 60, according to Robert E. and Caroline Krebs' books. The groundbreaking scientific experiments, inventions, and discoveries of the ancient world. At first, they used reeds to keep track of the units, but eventually, with the development of cuneiform, they used vertical marks on the clay tablets. So their system helped lay the groundwork for the mathematical calculations of civilizations that followed. And that's all. Thank you.